there, fearfully and wonderfully made human. It's me, Diana, licensed therapist, consultant, and your host of the Holistic Counselor podcast, brought to you by Through the Valley Therapy and Transform Mind Consulting and Coaching. I always begin with this reminder, fearfully and wonderfully made, because whether you're thriving or barely holding it together, I want you to know that your life, your healing, and your story all matter deeply. You're not broken. You are becoming. And today, I'm bringing you a conversation that speaks to exactly that. I had the pleasure of reconnecting with today's guest after watching her powerful interview on The Artist's Loft. And honestly, it stirred something in me, not only because of the story she shared about the inspiration behind her children's book, which touched my heart, but also because I haven't seen her since my in-between chapter in the South Florida film industry. Seeing her along with Richard, Alicia, and Frank reminded me of how deeply I missed that creative space. Katana Malone is truly a force. She's an award-winning actress, screenwriter, filmmaker, educator, musician, mental health advocate, and mother of two. And she carries all of it with grace, grit, and purpose. She's the CEO of Melanated Scribes Publishing, a company she launched in 2020 to elevate stories through children's books, poetry, and film. She also serves as the vice president of the West Indian Actors Database, an initiative designed to celebrate and cast authentically West Indian talent. But beyond the accolades, Katana is someone who's turned her personal pain into purpose. From trauma to postpartum challenges, from burnout to breakthrough, she's used creativity, education, and faith to build something healing, not just for herself, but for the communities she serves. So whether you're a mom, an artist, a teacher, or someone navigating your own healing story, I know this conversation will offer you tools, hope, and maybe even a few aha moments. Katana, thank you for being here. I'm so honored to share this space with you.
I'm honored you even invited me on. Thank you.
I have not seen her. We were just talking about that, like 8 years, right? I think it was 8 years, or maybe from a table meet. I don't really know. I just remember we would just, because it's a very small community,
Yeah.
South Florida film, and then life happens.
Yeah.
So
Keep in touch. I love it.
yeah, yeah. So tell me what's going on. Let's start at the beginning though, because for those who may not know who you are yet, who are you, and what has your healing journey looked like through art, motherhood, and identity?
So like you said, my name is Katana Malone. I actually started acting, I would say almost 14 years ago. I started because, okay, so let's rewind. So I had my daughter in 2009, and she came after I had a blighted ovum. And for those who don't know, blighted ovum is basically when you have the pregnancy and the baby stops growing. So the body thinks that you're still pregnant and it continues to, you know, show that there's elevated hormones and all these other things. But then when you look at the ultrasound, there's actually no baby. So I had to have a DNC January of 2009. I got married 4 days later, and then I had my daughter at the end of the year. And because of the surgery that occurred in January, I hemorrhaged when I had my daughter. And delivery went smoothly. A lot of people don't understand, like, the delivery is the easy part. It's the removal of the placenta that then turns into, let's hope this works out. And unfortunately, I flatlined, and I hemorrhaged. And after several hours, seeing everyone cry before I went into surgery, my daughter was the only one who I feel like she knew I was coming back because she refused formula. She wasn't taking anything. As soon as I got out of surgery, they're like, you need to come nurse her. And while I'm nursing her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost left. And it kind of got me thinking after a couple months, like, what are the things that I've always wanted to do? I always tell people, like, sometimes it takes a life threatening situation to kind of kick things into gear. And for me, it was that delivery. And after I had her, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to be an actress. I spent my entire life moving all over the world, and I never really got to fit in anywhere. So every time I moved with my dad, who was in the army, I would create a new persona. So I was like, you know what? I might as well take that with me and turn that into a career. So I allowed that trauma to become art in the sense where I started acting. And, you know, I was one of those kids growing up who, when you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was either an assassin or a doctor or a lawyer, or I wanted to fight in Mortal Kombat. And like, the only way that's going to happen is if I'm an actress. So I'm just going to go that way.
Oh my goodness, girl, I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
was,
you know what? That's the thing. I think I realized looking back in the film industry, we in the film industry have a lot, and I noticed that like many of us have had a lot of trauma, and being in that industry really has you either express it in a very healthy way or it actually causes more trauma. It depends on how you're using it, honestly. Because I've seen some stuff in I mean, girl, you know that. Like we both been in the South Florida film industry, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And my therapist brain. So, Katana, like honestly, wow, wow. I just felt that, like really, really felt that. Like I'm trying to hold back the tears because people know on my podcast that I'm a very emotional person.
you let him out, I'll let him out.
But the story, but this is it. This is the point. This is why I started the podcast. This is, you know, I have a story too of how I ended up in the film industry. I don't know if you know it. Like I was a therapist, and then the next thing you know, my son had a traumatic brain injury in 2012. So I had to quit my job as a therapist to homeschool him and help him. He got better. And I was about to go back to being a therapist, and a girlfriend of mine who was a producer in New York said, "Hey, listen, you had a hard time. Why don't you take some pictures? I'll take some pictures of you and send them to agents." And
Mhm.
then next thing you know, they're like, "You have a personality that's so outgoing, and you'd be great in front of the camera because you're very photogenic." And I'm just like, "All right, I'll try it out." And that's how I got into it. And
I notice when it comes to some of the best actors, you know, when you think about, you know, people like Robin Williams and Heath Ledger, they were brilliant, you know, and the trauma was there. And I've even seen, you know, some interviews with Jim Carrey where, you know, they're told to push past this trauma, you know, and use it in film. Even, you know, for me, like I did a film, a movie called Marcus, and it was based on it revolved around mental health. It was my first lead role, and it was therapeutic for me because my character had similar experiences that I had in real life. And I was able to use this art as a way to heal my own past, you know. So I think one of the beauties of being in that film industry is being able to take that pain and turn it into something. But I call it, you know, you alchemize it. You do alchemy, you lead to gold, and that's really your emotions, your feelings, your past, your trauma, turning it into something golden. So
yeah.
that's what I've been doing, you know, over the past almost 2 decades.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you know, you're so right on. And now that I'm on this side of things, right? I'm a therapist. I do have creatives that come to me because I think they either, you know, sniff me out and they see that I understand them. And I, oh my goodness, I don't know if you hear my dog barking. Do you hear him barking? Okay, good, good. I'm like, I told him to be quiet. Anyway, um, some of these creatives that come to me, I do understand them because I was in it and the healing part, and it's musicians, it's singers, it's actually oil painters, it's all different people with different backgrounds in the creative space. And sometimes the thing is, we in the creative space will use creativity and try to help everybody else, but we really don't do the inner work to truly, truly heal. And sometimes it's, you know, it's hard. It's hard depending on the trauma and stuff like that.
I agree. It's funny because I noticed that so when I first started my social media, I would get the, you know, the usual hit-ons and the DMs and things like that. But then over time, those DMs turned into, you know, people kind of seeing a post that I would make and they would just open up to me and say, yeah, I'm going through something similar or this and that. And I make it a habit to always respond to my DMs. Like, I don't care what it is, I'm going to respond because you never know if there's someone that's sending you a message that just needed someone to talk to in that moment.
Yeah.
I found that what happens a lot of times when I'm giving advice, and I tell people all the time, hey, I'm not a therapist. I've been in therapy, like I have the experience on that side of the couch. But I've noticed a lot of times when I give that advice, it's like I'm talking to myself.
Mm.
So I've come to realize that a lot of times something else is speaking through me, and sometimes I needed the message as well. So I kind of just allow myself to be an outlet where things come in, things go out, and I try not to hold on too much um, to certain traumas, whether they be mine or someone else's. And I always tell people, I had a friend of mine who came to me one day. He's like, hey, are you in the space to receive this? And I appreciate that because it's very heartwarming to know that people will ask you first, like, hey, before I dump this all on you, are you in the space to hold it? Because I'm
Wow.
going through your own thing. So now whenever I'm in that space myself, I'll say, hey, are you in the space to hold what I'm about to say to you? So I think that's important for us to know that, it's okay to take things, but to also give yourself the grace to say, hey, right now I can't hold that.
Yeah, to say no. Well, I can't because that's what they pay me for.
Well, yeah.
I, well, actually, I'm at a place in my career where I'm trying to pass the baton, right? Because there's younger therapists and coaches, and like we're in a space now that mental health is finally being destigmatized, where we're actually able to talk it, especially listen in the Black and Brown communities, because our community, I'm half Caribbean and my mom's from South America, right? But okay. And so we're going to talk about the West Indian, to understand that more because those spaces have very different ways of thinking about mental health. I've had to, and this is one of the main reasons I started this podcast because it was to try to break the stigma of in my community, right? And also in the church community, because it seemed like, you talk about like, I'm feeling a certain way. Well, you don't have enough faith, or I'm
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit because I want to understand the whole Melanated Scribes, West Indian actors database. I'm like, wait, am I West Indian? I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, wait, how do you explain what that is? Because I'm like, West Indian, I know that's got to be something in the Caribbean, but oh my goodness, am I one? Am I not? Will you adopt me? I mean, what's up?
Where are you from? Was
My
that
dad's Puerto Rican and my mom's Colombian.
so Puerto Rico is considered West Indian. So what it is okay, so both of my parents are Jamaican. I was born in the US. So every time I watch a movie where the character's supposed to be from Jamaica, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me when I hear an accent that's not accurate. You know what I mean? So it's, and I've seen it happen with Puerto Rican. I've seen it happen with Dominicans. I've seen it happen with Haitian. And if you're not from that country, you can't
Hmm.
touch it. Everyone else is like, oh, that's great. Yeah, he sounds Jamaican.
We all look alike.
And I'm like, yeah, but that's
Right.
not how it sounds. So
Hmm.
I had some gentlemen reach out to me, and they had started the company. They started West Indian Actors Database, and the whole idea of West Indian Actors Database is to pull people with authentic backgrounds to play these roles.
Wow.
Because for me, for example, living in South Florida, most of the jobs that I've had, believe it or not, are
Hmm.
pro Hispanic. And I'm on sets and I don't know what's happening, And it's like it's crazy because when I had agents, I became typecast to that I looked a certain way. And I'm like, but I don't speak Spanish, like, and I get it. South Florida is heavily, Hispanic, but it's also heavily Jamaican. It's also heavily Haitian. It's Puerto Rican. It's a melting pot like New York.
Yeah.
But most of the roles I got didn't fit me. Like it was so funny. The first commercial I did that was Hispanic, it was a Wendy's commercial. I'm
Okay.
sitting there and somebody was like, everyone starts staring at me and I'm like,
Yeah.
what's happening? And they're like, the director asked you to, you know,
I
so
don't speak. I don't speak Spanish.
West Indian Actors Database basically is there to, make sure that if they're casting for Jamaicans, they get people who actually speak patois or actually understand the culture so that
Oh, wow.
it makes sense and it doesn't feel disrespectful to people that are actually from that culture.
I love that because
Yeah.
in the right like the field I'm in, we have I literally go and I train other people how to be culturally competent in therapy because so many people will diagnose and I'm like, you're not taking the say
Culture.
for yeah, the Jamaican culture into consideration. This is why they have to stay stoic. It's not because they're, or et cetera, et cetera. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's true when when you think about the mental health aspect with Caribbean, and to kind of divert from melanated from West Indian Actors Database, that what you said about being from a specific culture in Jamaica, it's there's always a reason for a mental health issue or a mental health diagnosis that's not
Mm.
labeled there. It's something else. It's
Yes.
a duppy. They say the person's probably possessed, or like it's something else other than what we know it to be psychologically. And to divert from that, I actually started Melanated Scribes in 2020 during
Mm.
during lockdown. I found myself constantly just writing, 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 and
Me too.
yeah, because I couldn't get on set. I couldn't
Yeah.
get teaching. And I'm like, you know what? I just need to somehow get
Yeah.
all my thoughts out. And
Yes.
I found that for me, I get into bouts of depression when I'm not creating. So it does, I don't care if it's poem, I don't care if it's a story, I don't care if it's me singing something or writing a song. I have to somehow be able to express myself
Mhm.
to keep from falling into that dark space because I always have thoughts going on in my head and I always have to somehow get them out. And if they just sit there, then it's overwhelming for me.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Katana, we're going to talk about this big time because what you just expressed is what I hear from some of my clients that come in that, you have the tools now how to express it, but I have creatives that come in that are so misunderstood and they're not the business focused CEO kind of like, all right, we got to work the 40 hours a week and everything. And they're so misunderstood in their families. And then they're told stories that make them feel even worse. And you see like they're never good enough in a culture that I don't even know how to say it because I love America. I love being here. My mom fought hard to come here for a reason. I get it. But even in our field, I bet you anything, Katana, you could sniff out who's there with their ego that's all about being rich and famous, right? And those are the people I never wanted to work with back in the day. But those that are true creatives and artists, they don't care about rich or fame, being
Yeah,
rich or fame. It happens. It
it happens.
happens to them. And then other people will take that for their glory and their, there's some healthy people in in that industry.
Yeah.
I mean, but but what you said about the creativity, I, girl, did you write a poetry? Because I wrote two poetry books between 2020 and 2022.
I with poetry for me, it kind of blends in with music, like
I love that.
and then it turns into a song. Or,
Yeah.
but when it comes to you know, the Caribbean side of it, it's like you were saying about this country versus how, it's weird because I was born here. I'm the first generation born here, and
Me too.
there's this joke about Jamaicans having a whole bunch of jobs, and I'm unfortunately
Yes.
one of those people.
I think it's yeah.
Do a whole bunch of things. I'm a teacher. I have two kids.
Me
I
too.
music. I'm an actress. I write.
Hmm.
For like, how do you have the time? And I'm like, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Because I have to somehow get these ideas out, or people will reach out to me and say, "Hey, we have a song we want you to get on." I'm like, "Okay, sure," and I'll do it because it's for me, it's freeing. So on the other hand, I've had to separate myself from people because of that. What is your purpose? So your purpose shouldn't be tied to your purpose shouldn't be money. It should be tied to a belief or a passion or something else. Then the money will come. But if you feel your purpose is to be rich or to have money, then we're not going to align. That's because that's not my purpose. My purpose is to create. My purpose is to teach. My purpose is to inspire.
Yes.
If money comes with those things, fantastic.
Right.
It hasn't yet. I mean, I'm in a good space. I've been teaching
Yeah.
for a decade,
Yeah.
it doesn't stop me from continuing to push out books and continuing to do music and continuing to write screenplays, because this is what I love to do. And it's cool and it's drawn people. Like, I have friends who people would be surprised that I know them, and I'm like, yeah, but the relationship I have with them is more of I'm a human being, they're a human being. I'm not in this for rich and fame. If it
Well, it's an ego. It's an ego. Okay, so because I am a therapist of faith, Katana, so I have to explain. And then I have clients who don't. It's all very clinical, very science based. They don't want the faith part, and I'm okay with that because I'm like, yeah, well, I'll be praying for you anyway. but but it's like the ego and equals the flesh, all right? And
Mhm.
then humility equals the spirit. Humility means surrendering to the purpose, knowing you are a vessel and whatever gift that is being given to you. Why are you? Because I feel how I see the faith that I believe in. It is about loving God and loving others. Exclamation mark.
Right,
Okay,
right.
it's not. And then, I mean, I'm a human being, so guess what? I will judge, and then I'm like, oh Lord, I'm so sorry. I'm always constantly apologizing for sometimes being a jerk. But that's because I'm a human being, and I don't want to excuse it either. I want to be able to utilize everything that happens around me in order to help, right? That's to me what a healthy human being should be, is able to search their own heart and understand, why did I say yes to that production? Was it to tell the story, right? Or was it because I was just really low and I needed to stroke my ego and make myself feel better?
And I feel like for me, a lot of those lessons came um, around the time I had my son, which is kind of where I say, okay, so my daughter she'll be 16 in December. So that's around the time I started acting. And she got me into, you know what, life is short, do what you love to do. When I had my son, so I had my son at the end of 2023. And
Mm.
the year before, I had three miscarriages: January, June, December. So when I found out I was pregnant with my son, I kind of was like, yeah, I'm pregnant, and unfortunately, I wasn't in a very healthy relationship at the time. So I kind of was like, you know what? I was ready to go at that point, but I saw the pregnancy test and I'm like, yeah, this is happening. And I wasn't excited yet because
Yeah.
I had already lost so many the year before. And again, it was 15, 14 years later. And I'm like, okay, I'm considered geriatric at this point. And,
Oh my gosh. I
and
can't
yeah,
believe they put that label on women after what, 35, right?
saw that when I went to the doctor. I was like, I'm what now? Okay, okay, I'll take that. But then I had my son, and um, and this is not to bash. I'm not trying to bash dad, but we weren't really in a good space.
Mhm.
And I had gotten to the point where I said, you know what, I want to raise my kids in a home that's peaceful, in a space that's healthy. And if you're not willing to get help for your anger or these things that you have going on, this is not going to work. If you don't want to get help, then I'm giving you a get out of jail free card. You want to go, because I'm not going to fight it. And my son was born the 23rd. I got home the 26th. Dad started moving out the 29th. I had an emergency C-section. So when dad left, I couldn't walk.
Oh my gosh.
I was not able to move. I cried every single day for almost 2 months. Um, And when I knew postpartum had hit me, it was his doctor's appointment. I took him to his doctor's appointment. My son was born, he was almost 10 pounds. Big, very big boy. And I took him to the follow-up appointment and he had lost 2 pounds. And it was understood that because I had postpartum, while I was nursing him, my body had shut off milk supply. So I was starving my son and had no idea that I was. I
Wow.
was so upset that I didn't realize my body was like, "Hey, you're upset. We can't give this to your child."
Right.
And
Yeah, you were in survival mode.
I
That's what we
was
call it. Yeah.
unfortunately, him losing all that weight was like a snap out of it for me. Where
Yeah.
okay, I'm now alone. I had been on maternity leave for several weeks when he was born. Had no income. I was under the impression that I would be with somebody that was helping take care of anything. He had all his things out by the end of October. November 1st came around, no rent money. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, okay, I need to, help from this person, help from this person. And luckily I have, some people that I could reach out to that were able to help me cover November. But in that moment, I had realized, okay, I had given so much to this person, and why? Why had I given so much of myself to the point where I was left with nothing and now couldn't take care of my kids? And I had to do a lot of shadow work. I call it, we call it shadow work, where it's like, okay, I need to go back further to figure out why I'm the way I am now, in a way that doesn't victimize myself, but in a way that says, what happened in your past that has you making the decisions you're making now?
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was hard to look and say, okay, because this happened in childhood, I experienced sexual abuse. I experienced a lot of abuse when I was younger, verbal abuse, physical abuse. Um, I had been incarcerated a few times because I was always defending my mom and my sisters from a very abusive father. And I had held on to that into the point where forgive, 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 but forget, 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 forget.
And a lot of us go through that.
And it took me going through that experience of being left alone to realize that I had been too dependent on being seen, that I wasn't seeing myself. You
Wow.
know, and yeah, it was rough. And then I started writing the books for I was like, you know what? I need to leave something for my kids. If something happens, like I went into that part of the depression where I was like, okay, if something happens to me, I need to be prepared for my kids. And I started writing. I started, designing clothes. I'm like, I have to do something so that I'm bringing in income. Like I can't afford to sit here
Yeah.
my, in my sadness when I have
Hmm.
depending on me.
Right.
So I pushed through, but I still had to make sure to give myself time to also work on my mental health and work on, the parts of me that they need that's healthy.
How did you work on those parts? Like what did you do? I know you mentioned shadow work, and for the audience that don't understand that, I understand it because there's so much different kinds of work to do, but to me it always does start in childhood, especially when you come from a trauma background. And to me it's wounds. You had and many of us do. And this is the thing. I have a lot of clients that come in and they're like, well, someone so and so had it worse, or you heard the story, like you have no idea what real trauma is because you're an American. Like, I mean, I heard it all, and I realize like these woundings happen at certain times of life, and sometimes we store them away because our brain wants to protect us. Our brain wants to have us move forward because we need to move forward. So, what do you mean by shadow work, and what actually helped you get out of the funk?
So shadow work is basically looking at certain experiences that I had in the past
Mhm.
and actually changing the way I saw those experiences. So, for example, I dealt with some abuse and I had to think about what happened at that time, how I reacted to it, and then change the way I saw myself as a result of it. So I
Yes.
spent most of my life blaming myself for a lot of things that happened to me because other people in my life were blaming me for those things. So it shaped how I saw myself and later shaped how I became into my adulthood. So if I'm seeing that, okay, sexual abuse, this happened to me because somebody said that it was my fault, I have to look and say, no, you were 12 years old. You didn't ask for that. It's kind of like looking in a mirror, but you're talking to a younger version of yourself.
Yes, that's internal family systems where I talk about that a lot. IFS, or actually, I mean, it's different theories, different names, kind of the same work is reframing, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? You take the narrative, take it out and challenge the thought, going, where's the truth in that? And then putting it back in your brain with the new reframe.
And that's something I still do now because I tell people all the time, I'm like, I have no shame of being in therapy. And now I kind of so the shadow work was more spiritual for me, and
Mm.
the logical side was EMDR. I started doing EMDR.
Yes, I've done EMDR too. Oh my gosh.
And that's what that does. EMDR helps you
Yes.
change the way you saw a certain experience. So,
Right.
for those who don't know, it's post-traumatic stress. Like it comes up sometimes here and there, and I have to look at the experience and say, okay, what's happening right now that kind of reminds me of what happens back then, and how can I change the way I see that experience? Like case in point, again, my dad was in the military, and Anybody who knows, military is very strict about being on time. If you are on time, you're late. You need to be there 15 to 20 minutes early to be considered on time. It,
Yes, and that was the film industry concept too. I remember that. And I'm like, I love that.
it's gotten to a point now where that little seed,
Mm-hmm.
I get anxiety now when
Mm.
I'm late to something, or whenever I'm late to a doctor's appointment or to work, or if I have to turn back because my daughter forgot something at home. I find I'm getting anxious, and I'm like, okay, why is it? The first time I did it, I'm like, why am I so anxious about this? And I had to go further back in my childhood to say, oh, because you went to military school up until you were in sixth grade and they were very strict about time. So I had to change how I said, you know what? Now it's like, you know what? I am being deterred for a reason. I probably was not supposed to be on the road at this time. There might have been an accident waiting for me had I left the house when I thought I was supposed to leave the house. So I have to reframe.
Oh my gosh, I still need to do this, Katana. Like, honest, I'm a therapist, and if my husband hears this, he's gonna be like, "Oh, you need to hang out with Katana and have her teach you this." I swear,
It's work because there's still
it
time
is.
to get like that, you know, but
Yeah.
times where I have to conscious, like my son might make a little sound and I'm like, yeah, you're right. You know, he's not saying anything, but it's like a trigger for me to like, yeah, you're right. Let me pause. Let me think.
Hmm.
My daughter, almost 16. I started her in therapy when I realized there were certain things she didn't want to talk to me about. And that's the difference between me and my past and my culture. They're like, oh, everything that happens in the house has to stay in the house. You know, don't go out in the street until no. With my daughter, when I realized she didn't want to talk to me about something, I said, do you want someone to talk to?
Oh, I love
I
that.
don't want you to get to my age,
Hmm.
feel like you can't speak about it.
It's not only that, it's not only like holding in the anxiety, but what it does to your body. People
Mhm.
forget that we're a biology, a psychology, and a theology. And anyone that has heard from episode one to this episode, I think this is number 80, it is understanding like, yeah, practicing the pause, because that's what I heard. You're teaching yourself or wiring your brain to practice the pause to a point of like, what's happening? And, oh, I'm not there anymore. I'm here. What are the tools that I learned? And then picking them up and actually using them. You're also breaking stigma. I love that. And
Yeah.
breaking intergenerational trauma patterns. So that's a lot of different work that you continue. It's a continuation of having to do. To me, it's also like your sanctification for those that are Christians, that to understand you're being sanctified every day. It's not like, oh, Jesus is in my heart. Now I'm perfect. Now I'm good. And I don't need to do any other work. No. So I want to understand now, like your book, Mommy's Garden, right? And also the one about the rainbow.
So the first book that I wrote was called Mommy's Magic. And where, you know, my daughter thought I was magic because I was big into you know, incense and manifesting through like affirmations. Like when she was young, I would always like have her do manifestations, or it was like, I am beautiful, I am bold, and she saw it magically. Mommy's Garden, I wrote that for my mom. So each book is written, you know, with someone in mind. And my mom was the person who kind of she taught me how to plant seeds of hope, um, and be okay pulling the weeds out. Because my thing was, I always grew up thinking that I didn't want to hurt other people's feelings, and I didn't want to, you know, be looked at in the wrong way. I didn't want people to be mad at me. I didn't want people to dislike me because I already felt like that at home. And not
Yeah.
mom, but you know, from the first man in my life, you know, I wanted that acceptance. So I grew up and started to seek that acceptance elsewhere. So Mommy's Garden kind of makes me feel okay with pulling the weeds because I'm a big person. I don't want to kill anything, but the weeds gotta go, you know, and unfortunately they're gonna kill your plants, the things that you actually want to grow, the things that they either bring beauty or that bring sustenance, or you know, like I have a garden in my front yard. I'm growing potatoes and ginger and tomatoes and all.
Oh, you are really Jamaican.
You know what I
Or
mean?
really Caribbean. I shouldn't just say Jamaica because in my neighborhood, the Dominican, everybody, I even have my herb garden. I mean, look at my background. These are all real.
Okay. And I feel like with these plants, I'm one of those people who believes like you talk to your plants and you know they grow based on the things you say to them
Wow, look how happy mine are.
too. So I look at that like when I first started growing, growing my garden, I used to actually put like what they represented. So, for example, I would say basil on a little stick. I would say basil on the front and hope on the back.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
say time on the front and wealth on the back. Like I'm watering these things, and I want them to grow in my life as well as to grow in a pot. You know,
Right.
Mommy's garden kind of symbolizes the different ways we can use, you know, herbs and flowers. Sometimes we just need the beauty. You know, it might not serve a purpose other than to be nice to look at.
Hmm.
It kind of symbolizes different areas of my life where potatoes, for example, when you grow potatoes, it's deep within the soil. And that's like growth. That's like evolving spiritually and mentally. Sometimes you got to be in the dark. You got to dig yourself out from the very bottom.
Wow.
Okay, you know, so that's kind of what Mommy's Garden symbolizes for me. And the rainbow baby one, it was tough.
Yeah.
This one was, I actually wrote it for my daughter, uh,
Oh,
because she was there when I lost when I had those three miscarriages in 2022. So she was really excited, and she was, oh, I'm gonna have a sister, I'm gonna do her hair, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And she kind of felt like, is it me why the baby didn't come?
oh, goodness.
I wrote the book to kind of help, parents whose child kind of holds onto that sadness. And in the book, my daughter is praying to the next baby, like, hey, I don't know what you're going to be, but I'm going to do this with you and I'm going to do that with you. Just if you decide to come, these are the things I'll do with you. And these are the ways that I'll love you. And these are the things that I'll teach you. And, it starts off with the loss. Then it goes into, the sadness that the child feels and the blame that they put on themselves. Because believe it or not, some people don't realize how much a loss like that can affect their children.
Yes, it's grief. It's grief.
They grieve too,
Yes,
for them.
everybody grieves. I mean, in the family, I bet the grandparent, I mean, I could imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
At the end, you see that, mom tells her like it's been this amount of time now, because I waited to tell my kid. Like I didn't want to tell her too soon and then lose it. And then she feel that again. So
Mhm.
at the end of the book, my son is born and my daughter is like, now I know what love looks like, because he gets on her nerves. He's almost 2 now. He gets on.
Oh, I'm sure.
He loves this boy. Like you can't anyone don't raise your voice at him. Don't say anything like negative. When she gets up, she walks in the room. The two of them have these bright smiles. They're like, hi, hi, hi. And it's like it's love there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's what
yeah.
it's for me. And yeah,
Wow.
it was therapeutic.
Yeah.
I feel like it can help someone else as well. Yeah.
Oh, no, for sure. Because this is what storytelling is about. Okay. Like what we're talking about right now. Sometimes I have some of my clients, like they're like, I'm not a writer. I'm like, I know, but I'll send you some questions because your story is just as powerful as my story and, and Katana's story. And the thing is, I think that's why we are interconnected because like a movie is not going to make someone feel the same, it's not going to reach the same audience, but your story can help. It just reminds, and I'm just going to say this part of the Bible, which it reminds me when Jesus was talking to Simon Peter, and I think it's in the book of Luke, where he's like, hey, listen, Satan asked to have you for a little while, but when he's done with you, return and strengthen your brothers. I'm going to find the verse and put it in the show notes so people would understand. Like, no, we're meant to be in community. We're meant to love one another and to be together. I mean, we were in tribes way, way, way before the Industrial Revolution. Like, think about this around the world, right? And so, to me, we're supposed to help one another and love one another and not be against each other. And I mean, so how old's your daughter now?
That'll be 16 in December.
Oh man, see, my baby's 26, so I have
Oh,
five, well, six grandchildren now, and I'm just like when I'm seeing what's going on because I stopped working with teenagers. I
yeah,
would say in 2022, I
yeah.
stopped because that was mostly my career was working with adolescents in alternative high schools. And so to me now, how as a mom right now, and now you have a 2-year old
Yeah.
and a 16-year old. So I think you're at the end of Gen Z along with a Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
And you're a second grade teacher, correct?
I actually fourth grade now.
Fourth. Mija.
So I started teaching as a way to sustain. I was a substitute teacher. So anyone who's in
Me
the,
too.
you know that there's days you're not on set. So you
Yeah.
get some money.
Supplement your money and have fun and love on people.
Exactly. I subbed when I wasn't on set, and then I was on set when I was on set, you
I
know?
can't believe we have this much in common and we didn't really hang out even more. I'm like, all right, but all right, God, you have us now. All right.
To happen this way. Because now we have so much more to talk about.
I know.
So I then my mom's a teacher. My mom's been teaching for almost 30 years. And
Oh, wow.
what I did was I started off at my daughter's school and I
Mhm.
really was a grade ahead of her every year she was in school. So I purposely wanted to make sure that I had the tools she needed for the next grade.
Oh,
When she was in second, I taught third. When she was in third, I taught fourth. And I did that all the way up until she was in ninth grade. So I was with her at her high school. And she wanted me to come. Like I asked her, she's at that age.
oh,
Let me ask you.
okay.
10th grade came around. She was like, yeah, no, we're done. We're done. So I went back and I'm now teaching fourth grade
Oh,
gifted kids. But in that realm, I have students with disabilities. I have autistic students. I have, one of my son's oldest brothers is nonverbal autistic. So I've had experience working with children in all those spaces. And the one thing that is important to me is SEL, which we call social emotional learning.
yeah.
I have a little carpet in my room if they want to go meditate, listen to music, have your little space, because people don't realize that children, and I know because I was that child, for me, school was an escape. I didn't want to be at home. You
Me too. I
some,
tell people like Broward County School. I was Broward County School. I mean, I'm in New York too. I don't want to ask what school because I don't want nobody to come after,
yeah,
stalk
I'm
you or anything like that. But are you in Broward, Dade, or Palm Beach?
Broward. Yeah.
Okay, that's why you need to let me know. It's Broward County School. Okay, but Broward County Schools, it's a hard place because I subbed once. I subbed in private schools and then I tried to sub in the Broward County public school, but I wanted to do therapy because some of these kids in the general population, they needed more than they were getting. And I felt so bad for I actually have a lot of teachers that are
Yeah.
teachers, nurses, other therapists as I'm their therapist,
Yeah.
accountants. It's a very wide variety, but a lot of teachers because it's a stressful
It is.
job, especially after 2020.
Yep. And that's when I went from, so I started as a day-to-day sub, then I became an interim sub, then I became a teacher. I actually became a teacher during COVID because of
Wow.
my job as an interim teacher. Because when we went on lockdown, the teacher that I was taking over for, she was like, oh, well, I'm on maternity leave. I could just work from home now, And I was like, oh, no, which put me out of a job. So
Oh,
I had the tools to be certified. I just hadn't wanted to, I
mhm.
admit to that. I'm an Aquarius. I like to be able to bounce around. So to be to be now tied down to a job for the first time in over a decade was like, okay, I'll do it.
That's a hard thing for us creatives.
It is.
I know it is for me too. And I'm,
People don't understand that if you're not signed to like an amazing agency, and this is no shade to any of my agents, but if you're not in the right place and you're not in the right, you don't have the right opportunities, you got to work a 9 to 5. You have to be able to, and I look at
yeah,
it's me being able to invest in myself. Like I
yes.
use some of that funding to start my company. I use some of that funding to publish my books. I use some of that funding to pay when people order. See, people don't understand when you do certain jobs, you got to pay for the product before the customer gets it. So they don't understand that it takes a lot of investing before you can actually start to make money. So I look at it now like, okay, this is a way for me to take care of my kids. It is a way for me to reach kids, and it is a way for me to invest in myself. So I love teaching because I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'd rather be around kids nowadays than most adults. When you look online and you see all that separation, like you were saying, it's exhausting, and I found myself having arguments with people who send me DMs that are like, oh, women are this, and I'm like, I don't want to see that. I don't believe in that. I don't vibrate on that level. I don't like that you versus him versus that. We're all
Right.
I look at us like there's two ways, like especially when it comes to religion. I look at it like different ladders going to the same place. They're all going up. They're going up or they're going down. It's a ladder. Whatever ladder you choose to climb, that's you. Same thing with us being like tentacles of a giant octopus. They're all connected. That
Yeah.
giant octopus is the omnipotence, whatever you believe in, and we're just all the tentacles still connected somehow. You might be doing this in your life, I might be doing that, but there's still that connection that ties us together. So I have to look at people like you came into my life at a certain point where I needed a lesson that you were supposed to teach me, or I needed to help teach you something, or I needed to see myself through your eyes, or you need to see yourself through my eyes. Like you and I having this conversation, now we're realizing how much we had in common. You know what I mean? So maybe I only did that interview so that you and I could have this conversation. Like everything serves a purpose. Like I actually had that tattooed on me, like the Ecclesiastes, there's always a time and a season. And like I believe that everything has a purpose. Everything happens for a reason. And I'm
Yeah.
all for that. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Katana, like seriously, I'm just thinking about like there's been a long like casting, not casting networks, front runner casting sent
Mhm.
an email the other day and said, "Hey, listen, we're getting on a new whatever. If you're still wanting to be part of it, you have to redo your whole profile, right?" I'm sure you know that because you're still in it, right?
And so
Well,
I don't do it as much only
hmm
because I'm now at a space where I feel like I want to tell my own stories. I don't
yeah,
want the typecasting. I don't want to be typecast. I don't want to keep telling the same story
right.
over again. I feel like we need more uplifting stories, but
Yes.
realistic stories. Like I
Yes.
want to see we don't have to be princesses, but we also don't have to struggle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like I feel like if we're continuing to ingrain that in our minds and we're continuing to see it in movies and TV and videos, I want to see somebody that's actually successful without having to struggle. I
Yeah.
want to see someone who's a mom and a single mom, but she's enjoying it. I want to see a single dad that can handle a daughter without making it seem like, oh, this is the most stressful thing for him. I
Right.
know single fathers that are amazing.
Yeah.
Show that. I
I
know,
love that.
I want to see positive stories. Like,
hmm
and if there's a little negativity, it's real life. But it doesn't have to be struggle, 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 hatred, hate,
No.
fight, fight. Like, I don't, it doesn't, it's not.
Right. Well, I think that's why I mean, like honestly, I I don't want to debate. I don't want to hurt anybody. I'm trying to I mean, back in the day, I had a company called Rahab Productions and I was that's what I want. But I know what happened. I went ahead of God. Like I was so Martha, and people will understand like what Martha and Mary, Mary was at the feet of Jesus. Martha was the one that was just like, hey, complaining, like, hey, do you see her, Jesus? She's sitting there doing nothing while I'm probably cooking and cleaning and doing everything for everybody else. And it was just realized now I look back and I'm like, okay. And you know what the beauty is, Katana, that I'm still a therapist, but now I have this creative space, and I'm very, very grateful for this space. This is why, and I'm also very protective of it because people are like, hey, I would love to sponsor, or or how much money are you making? And I'm just like, this
Yeah,
is not about the money.
right.
This is about the healing and being used as a vessel to help others because your story and us talking, who knows who's going to listen and feel heard, understood, loved. Who knows who's going to take your book and go check it out. Hopefully you're going to tell us where we're going to find it. And you know what I mean? And pick it up and read it to their child or to themselves and say, "Oh, I'm not alone." Who
And that's the reasons why I wrote another book called His Flowers.
Ooh.
And it's kind of like you know, it's a poetry book, but it's like, we see you when you come from work and first thing you do is jump in the shower because you need time to decompress. It's a book for men because
Mm,
I feel like, I've been seeing so many suicides from men, and it's like they need to know we love you, we see you, we
yeah.
flowers while you're alive.
Yeah. And we're not against you.
I'm not against you. So it's a poetry book to say, hey, we see you, here are your flowers. Same thing with the nonprofits that I coincide with. So there's one called Reach Within, which is in Grenada. I haven't personally met them, but a friend of mine, Brandon McLaren, he's like an amazing actor. he supports them. So I saw him posting and I'm like, what is it? What are they about? And I found out that it's mental health in children in Grenada. And I'm like, oh, I want to help. I want to support somehow. So my books, I actually will donate 10% of proceeds to Reach Within. Then there's another one that I work with called Verb Kind, where I literally, when I'm free, I need to go back more. But on Wednesdays, I go in a detention center and I sit with a group of boys for an hour. It's myself and like 5 or 6 other people, and it's volunteer. And you just talk to them. They just need people to talk to, and they sometimes they want to tell you what their dreams are. Sometimes they just want to tell you what they did over the weekend. And I've spent time in a juvenile detention center. So I know how helpful that would have been for me had I had someone come in and talk to me and say, hey, you are still loved. At 14, that would have completely changed my trajectory going forward.
Right.
So I find that it's necessary for me to not only get my hands involved, like personally be there and see
Yeah.
somebody to help,
Well,
but
it's healing to volunteer.
it is.
It's healing. It's a situation where you're able to help another person. As long as you do your own work, because I do know people that will go into spaces like that and they don't deal with their own stuff. They're
And that's
just
what I haven't the last couple of weeks. Like I tell them whenever I miss time, I come in and they're like, hey, Miss Katana, where'd you go? And I'm like, yeah, I was dealing with something personally and I didn't want to give that to you. I didn't want
yeah,
to have that energy. So I had to step away until I was in a good space to be able to, hear you and help you. If
I love that.
I can't, be here for you.
Good for you.
It's a beautiful experience. Like Verb Kind is like one of the best things I could have come across. And I love it because there's, the girl detention centers, the boys detention centers, and just to be able to have people come and care about them is what they need.
Yeah, that's what I loved working at the alternative high schools
Yeah.
because those are the kids that were kicked out of the regular public schools, and it was in Broward County, most of the alternative high schools that I worked in, and those were the kids that needed love the most, right? Are the ones that are probably the angriest, are the ones who need understanding, love, and acceptance the most. But anyway, um, listen, Katana, I know I could probably sit here and talk to you for another, 5 hours? I seriously, we have so much to catch up on and everything, but I know I want to be respectful of your time and also of the audience that's listening. So is there any final words you would like to tell the audience?
Same thing that something similar that I told Artist Loft. One is to it's okay to give yourself grace first and foremost. I think it's important that people give themselves grace in the sense of yes, you might have made some choices that were not healthy, or you might even look at yourself in a negative way based on certain experiences, but you have to give yourself grace to say that, okay, I'm human, and what can I learn from this? Two, therapy is okay. I think a lot of people are so against it because of, upbringing or cultural stigma or whatever the case is. But it is okay to have therapy. And I saw this idea in I think it was London where the barber shop had licensed therapists while men were getting their hair done. And I'm like, that is an amazing idea. If I could do that here in the States, I would do that. I think it's amazing. Just put someone there in a normal space where men usually talk, so give them that licensed therapy as well. Three, breathe. Sometimes it's okay to take a breath. We're so in this hustle culture that I think people forget that it's okay to rest. Like
It's not lazy.
it's
It's
not
not
like
lazy.
I've been working on this novel for months and I'm literally on page 2, but I take time to spend with my kids. I take
Yeah.
time to spend with my mom and my sisters. And it's okay. It's okay to take a breath. It's okay to live because at the end of it, when you can say, yeah, I've got 20 books, how's your heart? How's your health? Are you able to walk across the street without losing your breath? Because you need to be able to get up and move, get up and do with family and also sit down and rest. You
Mm.
should always be hustling. And last, I would say create however you feel to create. You don't have to make the same type of stuff everyone else is making.
That's right.
You play the same roles that people are constantly telling you are the roles that you fit. No, if you say, yeah, I've been a comedian for 5 years, now I want to go do something serious, go do that something serious. Robin Williams did it. Jim Carrey did it. Like we see all these comedians.
I just saw a commercial with Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
And he's playing an angel or something.
I loved it. I was like, yes, I love that. You know, you were just John Wick, and he looks like John Wick with wings. You know,
With little bitty wings.
a little bit. I love that. I love when people. Keanu Reeves is like one of my favorite. Like, I love him.
Yeah.
He's so humble.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to see people just, you know, just do what feels right. You know, if it doesn't feel right in your spirit, don't do it. It doesn't matter how much they're offering you. It doesn't matter how much visibility you feel like you're going to get from it. Do what makes you feel good, not just going to make you money. Do what makes you feel good, and everything will flow from there. And forgive. I have to forgive. You gotta learn to forgive, because that was one of the things that I had to learn. That was one of the hardest lessons for me, because we can allow our anger to overwhelm us, and it can stifle your creativity. You've got to learn to forgive, let go. You don't have to forget, but you got to let that stuff off of you. Give it to something else, and flourish.
I mean, you think about forgiveness. It's like Jesus's last words on the cross: Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Woo, you know? And so, wow, that's a great way to end this conversation.
Mhm.
Where can they find you if they want to either figure out what this West Indian, if there's someone that's an actor or wants to get on that and they're like, West Indian, I want to be on that database, or they want to buy your book, or they want to hire you for their film or being a spokesperson. I mean, you do also, or tutoring.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hello. But anyway.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Rest. You can find me. My website is katanamalone.com. It pretty much has links to everything else from there. Social media, Katana Malone, the little @ symbol, Katana Malone. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube, all Katana Malone.
IMDb.
IMDb, yes.
I have one too still, I guess, I think. I mean, it's like there.
It's so funny. I Google myself, like, and it's not a cockiness. It's just like you'd be surprised what shows up when you Google yourself. So I'm like, I Google myself like every three to 6 months, and I'm like, okay, everything's good.
Yeah.
So
make sure it's not a mugshot. No, come on.
make sure that I don't. Yeah. So it's if you go into Amazon and you just type in Katana Malone, it'll bring up all of my books.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, and the movie.
I think I'm going to have to get them to read them to my grandkids.
Oh, they're great. Like I had a friend with like 20 copies, and she kind of just gives them out at birthdays. And I'm like, okay, I love that.
That is so cool. That's great. All right. I mean, that's wonderful. And hopefully I'll get to see you after I press pause and talk to you for a few more minutes after this. And maybe somehow, some way figure out how we can connect and collaborate on other things, because I had no idea we had this much in common. All right, listener, thank you. If you stayed with us to the end, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you got some nuggets out of this. And remember to trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and renew your mind. Bye. And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance, and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.